I thought
Okay.
maybe we could just start out talking a little bit of about the history of how you guys met each other, and maybe a little bit about what inspired you to start to collaborate with each other in various ways, what the initial spark may have been.
Yeah.
How did you actually meet?
Um, I met Alex in January of 2001, I think. I was, I sent Alex a movie that I had made called Moment Utopia, and I had been a fan of Alex's art for years, and, just thought, what the hey, I'll send one of my great inspirations, an idea of, possible collaboration in the future. And
I was getting plugged in a little bit to a sort of trance culture, and this was described as a documentary of that kind of culture, and so to me it was the best sort of presentation in the real essence of what the sort of the trance music and the whole collective of people could mean. This whole idea of moment utopia, to be able to glimpse the possibility of a world working harmoniously and creatively together.
There's a foundation of human experience that I see as virtue that has to be learned by everyone. And more of the religions that have developed about human beings finding the right way has caused the greatest problems to humans. Because really the right way is to find your own center in the whole existence of things. I think music, to all human beings, really is their language for the Creator. And music has the one purpose of celebration, or to express, if you will, the least oppositional activity that human beings can get into.
It's an open forum to people to really open their minds, their hearts, and know their purpose and direction. I mean, this is like hitting home with a lot of people.
Ultimately, the solutions to our problems will come from personal inspiration, individual experience that can then be translated into communal process, into creating something that's bigger than yourself. Raves at times hint at that possibility or can make it manifest, but it's certainly not a cure-all. We need to move on a lot of fronts.
I thought it was a really great piece of filmmaking, and then to realize that you're a musician, you touring with that, and writer and all the rest of these things. It was a real thrill to get introduced to your work.
Just be curious, what led you to do your first collaboration performance together last May at Infinite Chaos. How did that come about?
Alex, when's the next time you're coming to San Francisco? Sometime around May.
Right.
And it was just about the time when I was making my new album, Faces of Epiphany. Made some quick calls, and I managed to zero in on a date of May 23rd in 2003 at the Infinite Chaos warehouse space in San Francisco. It was just amazing how it kind of both dawned on us at the same time, let's try something different this time. And I was like, Alex, why don't I maybe do some little music, and why don't you read some of your amazing poetry and
show some slides and show, it was an opportunity to do some spoken word stuff to Kenji's amazing music.
I don't know if I need to introduce Alex. I think probably everyone sitting in this room has probably been inspired by his artwork at some time or other in their life. So without any further talking on my part, I'll give you Alex Gray.
I'm so happy. Thank you so much, all the community here that turned out at Infinite Chaos. I'm deeply honored. Allison and I are completely blown away by Kenji's putting together a party at the very last minute. It's an extraordinary event. Thank you, Kenji. This is a historic night for me and my wife Allison. It was 28 years ago today that I first took LSD and that we met each other. Here's Allison. It was kind of our psychedelic anniversary. Now, this was the person that Allison knew, a very strange man who was sort of confused by the delusions of duality. And it was LSD that really flipped me into another dimension and a new possibility. My first acid trip 28 years ago, the LSD came from my old art professor, who Allison and I both were friends with, and I came to a party that was given by Allison, and we were not together at that time, but I was tripping when I came in the door, and I had a half a bottle of Kahlua in it with LSD, and I told her what was in the bottle, and she drank the other half. I had never tripped before, and so I went and sat down on a couch. And when I closed my eyes, I started to see this amazing turning. The whole space around me had seemed to be spinning. Now, all that year I had been doing performances about polarities, about duality, about being caught between the light and the dark, between the male and the female, between good and evil. All these polarities that seem to be in constant conflict in our world and in my mind and in my heart. Things were getting torn up. I made a challenge to God earlier that morning that if there was such a thing as God, I wanted it to appear in my life, because I was desperately searching for something.
And so when my professor offered me the LSD, I said, why not? And as I sat there on the couch with my eyes closed, looking inside, there was a tunnel that was emerging, and it was spinning around. I was in the dark. I knew I was in the dark, but I was going toward the light. I could see a light just around the corner. It was something I wanted to go toward, this light. This light was like the possibility of everything working when I felt like the world was completely fucked up. The light held a promise. I was circling, spiraling in this vortex, and I began to notice that though I was in the dark, I was moving toward the light, and there was a gray kind of shading that went all the way from the deep shadow into the light. And for me, this signaled a kind of a rebirth. This was my spiritual rebirth canal, because the polarities could become each other. There was a unity, a polar unity, that was the real truth. It wasn't everything at war. It was ultimately everything was one. And this light that I was moving toward seemed to be the light that was at the core of all the world's religions. And so my first reaction to that was, woohoo! I had never been happy before that, in a deep sense, in a sense that the universe is a perfect place, just exactly as it is. And I had that unusual sense of joy from that space. And I started to see how all the religions were really talking about the same thing. It wasn't just some kind of incandescent bulb that I was going toward. It was some light at the core of all spiritual truth, and that everyone I knew had access to with the right catalyst.
Nearly everybody who came to it said, wow, there's something happening there, you know. It's just, I think we were all amazed that it happened at all. It was meant to be, obviously, you know. And that was a catalyst then, you know, because we started thinking, maybe we should do a rematch. Oh, well, yeah, someday, you know, but then...
Well, what the key element is that I'm so glad I invited Eric. I gave him a flyer like, hey, check this thing out. And you showed up. The rest is history.
Your having seen that, and then our being able to get to meet you and Veronica, you know, your understanding both of the sort of business world and the spiritual world impressed us